Record of Ragnarok chapter 110. We are picking up right where we left off with the showdown between Odin and Kintoki. Before that though, if you have not already, subscribe to the channel so you stay on this side of the Record of Ragnarok algorithm. Always get the updates when the news releases. Also, shout out to the members who support the channel each month. Thank you guys. Now let's get into it. So obviously what we saw at the end of last chapter was Kintoki showing Odin this rune. His hand started to glow very brightly and Odin looked shocked. Now what we see is the crowd reacting, saying, look, Sakata's right arm, that light, it's so divine. He looks just like a god. And this is a sweet shot of Kintoki pulling back the axe to unleash a furious attack. The editorial note at the beginning of the chapter says the golden brilliance radiated by humanity. As Kintoki loads back, Odin says, you say you inherited the will of Golir? Lowly human garbage like yourself? It's absurdity. And Kintoki says, I ain't lying. You'll see here in a sec. And you get to see what looks like his axe extend. But I think this is just the light. But it looks like the axe itself extends into this massive axe. And he says, golden lightning axe, shoots out the attack toward Odin. And Odin is able to dodge. Odin jumps to the side and says, this power, and Kintoki continues on with his attack, continues moving forward, loads back again, this time above his head, and says furious flash, and tries to crush down onto Odin. Odin blocks this time with Golir. As Heimdall says, a lightning fast combo bathed in brilliant light. Just what technique did Sakata Kintoki use right there? Kintoki then says, wanna see whose is bigger? That's my fave. No idea what that means. But Odin starts muttering to himself, and this catches Kintoki's attention. At first it's inaudible, but then we start to hear, oh spell, turn and shatter the calamity, engulf the forest of darkness, guide the shadow to the curse, to mine enemy's heart. That is the song Odin starts singing, but he says it in Norse. We just see the English translation of it. When this happens, this aura starts enveloping Kintoki and actually reaches down all the way to his feet. Kintoki notices immediately that he's in danger, and Odin continues to chant, saying, sixth cursed hymn, counter curse, shredding shadow. And when he says this, Kintoki gets launched back flying into the wall. A disastrous attack, and it didn't even look like Odin put in any effort, as the crowd themselves are confused, saying how terrifying. Lord Odin's song is echoing throughout Valhalla, but people like Sasuke are saying, that god, how did he even send Kintaro flying like that? It didn't look like he touched him at all. What kind of technique was that? Heimdall says an incredible display of offense and defense from the get-go. Both fighters are going full throttle. Musashi replies to Sasuke saying, I've got nothing. Kintaro too. I don't think that technique he used was the stuff of humans. And Sasuke says, more than a technique, I guess it was a power. This is becoming one heck of a death match. Don't be getting excited about this, you deathmatch freaks, says Sasuke's Valkyrie. A lot of people want more supernatural type abilities. And the fact that Odin is using a cursed hymn that has such destructive power, I'm sure will get some people excited. It's not just like punch, kick, martial arts. Kintoki says, that was a surprise. What was that? At that point, we cut to Hilda and Zeus, and Zeus buffs up massively into his muscle-bound form. He says, just what is this, Brunhilde? He's pissed off, and Hilda just doesn't even look at him and says, whatever do you mean? He gets even bigger. He starts cracking the ceiling. He's like, don't play dumb. Explain yourself. That human was using a divine power. And more than that, that mark on his hand, that's the rune of the primordial gods. Hilda's unfazed. She says, Lord Zeus, are you saying you already knew? I'm assuming about the primordials. And Zeus replies, if you thought I wouldn't notice, you're looking down on me too much. At any rate, just why and here and how. So this kind of ties back into what I said way back in my evil Odin theory. I thought that Zeus kind of figured out what was going on, and he just kind of was letting it happen because he's interested in all this. He wants a fight anyway. He probably wanted to see how the plan was going to shake out. This obviously doesn't confirm it fully. We don't really know. It's kind of ambiguous. Maybe there'll be another translation, but it does seem like he recognizes the primordials, understands that they existed, and is curious about it. Zeus says that thing shouldn't even exist. Why is it showing up here and on him? Just what is that man? He says to Hilda. Sakata Kintoki is undeniably a human. However, he is the one and only human with the blood of primordial gods in his veins, says Hilda. Zeus says, what? Now that's a weird statement in and of itself. If he has the blood of primordials, wouldn't that make him something of a demigod? I don't know. Just as I thought, says Kintoki, the supreme god of the North Pantheon, huh? You're no slouch. Odin then says, to hold the Dagas rune and inherit the will of Golir, just how much do you know? Kintoki replies and says, I told you, I ain't a liar. I know it all. That you were once a nameless god and the tragedy of the Golir people, as well as its sole survivor. The crowd's reacting, they're saying Lord Odin was a nameless god. He said the Golir people, does anyone know who they're talking about? And another says, no, I've never heard that name before. We see some various reaction shots from other gods as Aphrodite says, that human boy seems like he knows things about Lord Odin even us gods don't know. Shiva says, who cares? All I want to know is which one of these two is stronger, and Thor doesn't react. So we don't know if Thor has known this the entire time or not, or if he even cares whether he does or doesn't. Ares laughs and says, just what is that human prattling on about? Did he have a few drinks before the match? He's joking, thinking everything's a joke. If it's just to boost morale, I guess I can understand, but spouting all that drunk talk is absurd. Hermes quiets him and says, it appears that this has actually become no laughing matter. Big brother Ares, please be quiet. We get this insane shot of Odin staring a hole through Kintoki, and he says the word Golir. We now cut away to what seems to be a flashback. The narrator says, the Golir people, they were a pitiable group of gods who had been purged from the histories of Valhalla. There's this big crater where I assume they used to live. It was a tragedy born from the beliefs of a certain primordial god. No, it was related to the entirety of Ragnarok. As that's being said, we see this disheveled god that has long hair, and it's kind of hard to decipher what's happening, but he's got these candles surrounding him and he's writing into this book. I don't know if this is supposed to be after the fall of the Golir people or before what we see subsequently to this narration, but this might be him writing into the book of Golir. Maybe this is after the destruction because his hands look kind of bloody here. Maybe it's dirt. I don't know. Maybe he survived initially whatever happened, whatever the destruction was. And maybe that's what he wrote down in the book. We'll have to find all this out. We see this book. The narrator says the truth of the world. We see this house now. Looks like a beautiful landscape and a woman. She is using her power to make flowers bloom. Her name is Erin. Mighty suspicious that this is the exact inverse of what Odin did way back in chapter 34. We'll touch more on that a bit later. For right now, let's stick in this flashback as we see this dwarf looking dude rushing toward her saying, Erin, Erin, come look, be amazed. The blueprint for those gauntlets I was talking about are complete. These are incredible. They're so thin, but they're made from ultra dense orichalcum fiber. With the perfect fit, they can defend against any attack. They're basically the ultimate shield. The name of them is Jarngrepper, and these are actually the gauntlets Thor used in his fight with Lubu that were destroyed in that battle. They were thought to be the reason he could wield Mjolnir at the time. Erin reacts and says, wow, incredible. I'm excited for you to finish them, dear. And it's revealed that these two are actually married, and these two are both primordial gods. She is the great light goddess. The guy speaking is Golir, and he says, you've got quite an eye. That's my beloved wife for you. With these gauntlets, you can handle any dangerous material. Although they'd be so heavy, maybe nobody could handle them. Are you listening to me, Erin? Of course, dear, she says. Golir, whenever you invent something, you act like such a child. And she's kind of laughing. Narrator says this god would later be written about in the forbidden text, the book of Golir, a primordial god, the great inventor god Golir. And he replies to his wife saying, well, that's because making things nobody's ever seen before is my whole reason for existence. That was Golir, the god linked to the truth. That's where the chapter ends. We're going to probably continue on into this backstory much further next month in chapter 111, as this guy's connection to Odin will likely be revealed. Obviously, Odin knows who this guy is. Odin was mentioned in the book of Golir, and I'm sure that Odin is probably the last sole survivor of the Golir people. Maybe this is even his father. The book we see in this flashback is the same book young nameless god Odin gets his information from to find the relic of the primordial Odin. So that's yet another connection. He obviously gets Thor's gauntlets from here. So I wouldn't be surprised if this is actually Odin's father and mother, and he's the sole survivor, or potentially maybe he just knows these people. But there's a lot of connections. Him having the decay ability that kind of is the opposite of the woman's ability kind of puts off some warning bells. We will see. Overall, I think this was pretty cool. I like the direction of Odin's abilities, using the hymn as an attack. The power of words is a really cool mechanic that they can use. I think Kintoki's gonna have it cut out for him, but I'm still expecting this to be a high diff fight like the usual, unless they just want to make Odin look like an absolute monster. Let me know what you guys think of the chapter though, and I'll see you guys in the Apocalypse of the Gods video sometime this weekend.